The first Rogue One trailers had a ton of cool stuff that didn't make it to the final cut of the film. What are they hiding from us? Let's break it down and theorize on today's Nerdist News. Oh, and I cannot express this enough. Major spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the movie, turn back now. I am so serious about this. It is a trap, and I am telling you about it.
It's a trap!
Well, we did it, you guys. We made it to the release of the first Star Wars spin-off, and while some of us are loving this bold, dark new sidestep for the franchise, and others are lukewarm on it, there's one thing that we can all agree on. Jyn Erso never once said,
"I rebel."
In fact, there's a ton of stuff we were looking forward to from the film's various teasers and trailers that didn't make it to the final cut of the film, and since we know for a fact that the movie had some extensive reshoots, we're thinking they may just be clues as to what the first version of Rogue One was. So without further ado, let's do some digging. First, let's talk about those scary Death Troopers. While the lead-up really put these guys in the spotlight, they don't actually play much of a role in the final film. Their most prominent appearances is in Rogue One's first moments, when they accompany Krennic on his mission to kidnap the Erso family, and by the look of their debut in the film's first teaser, it seems like in an original version of the movie they were way more aggressive, likely burning down Galen's peaceful farmstead. Next is one of the biggest changes we can see from the trailer to the final cut, Jyn's introduction to the rebellion. The first teaser really hyped up the young Erso's rap sheet, with Mon Mothma dressing her down in classic action hero fashion with a list of her criminal accomplishments, from theft to forgery to assault. In the final cut, they just need her to help them get access to Saw Gerrera so that they can grab Bodhi Rook, who just happens to have been sent by her dad. It's all a little confusing, but it definitely seems like there was a cleaner version earlier on. From the sound of the exchange in the original trailer, it seems as if Jyn may have been trying to join the rebellion herself, forcing her to convince them why she's a trustworthy ally. In fact, Cassian Andor may not have been a rebel assassin, but instead the one trying to bring her aboard, saying himself that he's been recruiting for the rebellion for a long time. Could there have been an original cut where Jyn independently learns about her father's survival and tries to get in with the rebels so that she can get close to him herself? We know that some of the reshoots were designed to make her more empathetic and less cocky and abrasive, so it's possible that these artifacts from a past Rogue One were all moments that played up a different arc for Jyn Erso, one that brought her from extremist to patriotic rebel as she embarked on a personal quest to save her dad. This is played up even more by the inconsistencies between Saw Gerrera that we saw in the trailers and the one who made it to the final cut. Saw's big speech in the original teaser really played up the film's theme about the cost of war, with him asking Jyn how far she'll be willing to go to rebel against the Empire and what it'll turn her into. We also see Jyn trying to egg Saw on to make a difference in some trailers, which all told is a pretty stark difference from the Saw-Jyn relationship we saw in theaters last night, in which Saw tried to enfranchise an uncaring Jyn who wasn't there to recruit him, but to earn her freedom and move on. This doesn't explain what Forrest Whitaker was doing with his face, but it might explain his decision to grow out his hair between the two big scenes. Now let's talk about the ending. As it stands, Jyn and her team transmit the Death Star plans to the rebels via satellite, but there are a lot of snippets we saw in the film's trailers that imply the movie may have had a very different ending. For starters, there's this menacing TIE fighter Jyn marches willfully towards as she went to plug the Death Star hard drive into the satellite uplink. This shot is still in the film, just sans TIE fighter. So who was piloting this thing, and why was she marching towards it so confidently? Was a member of the Rogue One team piloting a stolen escape vehicle, or was this an act of defiance towards an enemy force? Was Vader originally included in this scene, or was Krennic more physically involved? We're leaning towards the latter, as another one of the promotional campaign's coolest shots, Krennic walking through shallow water full of dead stormtroopers, didn't make the cut either. And how about that sequence we kept seeing shots from where Jyn, K2SO, and Cassian run with the Death Star plans through the transmission tower and then onto the beach, where they went up against AT-ACs with Baze and the rest of the team. In the final cut, the plans never leave the tower and Jyn and company barely make it to the beach. Is it possible that the plans were, at one point in the film's progress, hand-delivered? Well, we did learn that Felicity Jones had to sign a contract with a sequel option, which seems that at one point she would have eventually risen within the Rebel Alliance ranks. If this were the case, it would also explain that leftover shot of Krennic clutching a blaster back on his base, which seems to be part of a dialogue scene with Darth Vader. Maybe there was a version of this movie where Rogue One escaped and Vader punished Krennic himself in a horrific show of force violence. We may never know for sure what the original cut of Rogue One looked like, but it's definitely interesting to see so much evidence evidence of a pretty wildly different movie that almost was. But what do you guys think? Would you rather have seen a more roguish Jyn Erso? Did CG Tarkin scare the shit out of you too? Let's discuss. Did you miss our report about the new DuckTales voice cast? It's amazing. The voice cast. The report is, I'd say, better than average. We'll be back on Monday with more Rogue One reactions, and there's a good possibility we're gonna dive into all of them Easter eggs, but don't hold me to that, because, you know, the holiday break is almost here, and we're kind of dialing it in. Head on over to Nerdist.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Nerdist news.